I'm going to make a whole wheat ciabatta. And now everyone knows ciabatta, but very few people have seen a whole wheat version.
Okay, that's great. I love ciabatta bread. So let's start with yours.
All right. Well, what I have here is some whole wheat flour. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put this flour right in here. Now we've just measured this out with cups, with 4 cups, but I like to use a scale when I'm doing this, especially with my students. I try to get them to always make everything weigh the same. So 18 ounces of flour is going to work on a scale, whereas 4 cups could vary. But if you know how to do the cups the way you do it, you can do it either way.
Because you could put too much flour in and then you've got a brick instead of a loaf of bread.
And if you pack the flour tight and I do it loose, then it's going to be different. So it's about 18 ounces of flour. And then we're going to use some instant yeast, which is the kind of yeast that just dissolves instantly. That's why they call it instant yeast. And it's very fast. You don't have to put water in first.
You put it with the dry ingredients.
Right in with the dry ingredients, along with the salt.
Yeah, and we need the salt. Tell them why we need salt.
Really, well, salt is really for flavor, but it also controls the fermentation. And so we have that in there, and it's not a lot, but it's about 2% of the weight of the flour. That's pretty typical in all breads. Now, in this particular one, I'm going to use a little bit of honey, because the whole wheat flour has a little bitterness from the bran.
It does.
We just put it on. That's all it really takes, that plus some water. So I'm going to use the paddle, by the way, not the hook.
I like using the paddle. I do not like using the hook for this, because I think this really gets the mixture well blended.
Exactly, and it really gathers everything much faster than the hook.
So are you using cold water
here? This is cold water, right from the tap. It doesn't have to be ice cold, but not warm. And I'm going to use about 2 cups, a little bit more, but I'm not going to put it all in at the very beginning. So all we have to do is just get this bowl up into place.
There you go.
And we're going to stay on speed 1.
Okay.
Very slow at the beginning, because we're going to just hydrate all the ingredients. We're distributing the salt, the yeast, everything. We're getting everything wet, and then I can drizzle in the last bit of water in here. Now what I want to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of oil on here, so about a tablespoon and a half of olive oil.
Extra virgin olive oil.
And that's going to tenderize it also, Mary, so that the oil will help with that extra fiber. We'll put it back on for just a couple of seconds, and just to mix that oil in, and then we're just going to let it rest, because the other thing about whole wheat flour is it takes much longer to absorb the water.
Slow growing.
So rather than mixing and mixing and mixing, I'm just going to put it aside. See, I've got this what was a very coarse dough. Just while it's been resting, it has actually been strengthening. The gluten develops even when you're not mixing it. So what we have here is gluten, which has been kind of primed and ready. And when we go to do the next mix on this, it should smooth out, and we'll get a nice smooth dough from it. And it'll only take a few seconds to achieve this. Because you will, again, be tempted to want to add flour to this. It's a very wet, almost batter-like dough, but it's going to sit overnight. And as it sits, it will actually firm up. And you will see as we pull one out, oh, we've got a little bit of flour stuck in the bottom here. So
that's all right, because you can mix it in.
That's right, and then that's the advantage of this wet dough. It's real easy to work that flour in. And again, just dip it in the water.
That's a very good trick.
And
out it comes. So we're covered, right?
For 24 hours or overnight, 12 hours to 24 hours in the fridge, and this will ferment very slow. That's the key to the flavor, is long, slow fermentation.
Okay, I'll put it in the fridge. You get the one that you've already done, because we've been working hard for you.
Now we've got this dough, which is the one that was made yesterday, and you can see how much it has grown, and you can see that we've got a lot of aeration in here.
It's nice and fluffy.
And I'm going to just work right here, if it's okay with you, Mary.
Yeah, sure.
And we're going to put some flour. Now, what I want to do is create a very floury area to work in.
Okay.
So if you could pass me some of that extra whole wheat flour.
Yes.
And you could just work with the whole wheat flour, but I love to mix it with semolina.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And again, it comes back to your Sicilian-style bread. We'll put some of the semolina in here to give it some added texture. Okay. I'm just going to stir that up, and we'll create a bed for this dough.
Ooh, that's a lot of flour, but you need that much,
But you need it because you can see how wet and soft this dough is.
Okay.
Now, what I want to do is get this dough out of here without degassing it too much, because if I can keep some of that gas in,
those bubbles.
And again, wet hands, just going to get it out into this bed, but it's much stronger than it was yesterday. You remember yesterday, the dough that we made earlier would not have held this shape at all.
Right.
This one does. So we have a soft, wet dough. I'm going to put some extra flour on top.
It is very
And now,
soft.
now I've got enough dough to make 1 large loaf or 2 small loaves, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to shape these by just cutting this dough in half. We've got 2 pieces here.
So you don't want to knead this too much.
You don't want to squeeze out the gas, because the gas that's in here from the first rise becomes the basis for the larger holes in the second rise.
Okay.
All right, so what we're going to do with this is this could be a loaf right here, but we want to give it a little extra strength and more of this ciabatta or slipper-like shape.
Okay.
Now this is a smooth side, and normally that would be the side you want to bake. But with this kind of bread, these coarse kind of ridges become part of the design.
That's great
This design work is part of the loaf.
Very nice.
But we need to let it rise. So I'm going to put it on that pan, if you wouldn't mind passing me
Okay.
that. And because we're going to bake this loaf a little bit later, and if I let it rise with the crease side up, it might open up on me. I'm going to take a little bit more of this mixture that we made, the semolina flour mixture, make a bed. We're not going to bake it on the pan, we're just going to raise it on the pan.
Okay.
And I'm going to shape it with the coarse side down.
Okay.
Now there's our 2 loaves. Later on we're going to turn them over and bake them right side up.
Okay, so we cover them or no?
So I'm going to spray them with a little pan spray.
All right,
and
pan
then
spray.
we'll put some plastic wrap over it loosely, just so it'll peel off.
Okay,
And
plastic
that's
wrap.
it. That's all
You
we
got
need to
it?
do.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I've got
All
some
right.
right here. For ones again that we shaped earlier, and you can see
They're
how much they've risen.
beautiful.
And they're very, very fragile. That plastic
Yep.
comes off because of the little
Right.
bit of oil that we sprayed on there. Now, again, because it's a sticky dough,
Yeah.
we're going to keep plenty of flour on my hand so that it doesn't stick. And I'm going to get underneath it and kind of
Okay.
tuck it back up and
Lift.
gently lift it and flip it over,
Over to the
again
rough
so that the
side.
rough side is up.
That's great.
And again, with flour, I can just form this back into the slipper shape.
Right, I'll get the oven door
All right.
for you,
And
and
a couple of tricks in this instance. I'm going to put a glove on.
Okay.
Because we have a pan for steam. And I'm going to first, of course, slide the dough into the oven onto the stone. You kind of jiggle it off the peel onto the stone. We've got one off. We'll get the other one in there. If it sticks, you just kind of release it. And if it kind of
There you
spreads a
go.
little, you just go in and just
Fix it a
tuck it
little
back
bit.
into the shape.
Okay.
There you go. Very nice.
Here's your towel that you
And
wanted.
in addition to that, I've got some water here. We're going to cover the glass so that we don't get any splashback because that could actually crack your glass.
Yeah.
We're going to pour about a cup of water into the pan underneath it that's been getting hot. And that you can hear the sizzle and it's
Right,
making
right.
some instant steam.
Steam,
And then
steam.
we can close that. We're going to set this oven for 450 degrees.
It's got a really great crust.
All this rustic quality to it with nice large
Wow.
holes.